Good afternoon. It is shortly after 2 o'clock on the 20th of April. We are here as the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. We have several items on our agenda today for the FY24 operating budget and CIP amendments, Housing and Community Affairs, Housing Opportunities Commission, Office of Agriculture, and the Park and Planning Commission Parks CIP amendments that the county executive has sent over. We're going to begin with Housing and Community Affairs. We'll invite our colleagues from the executive branch up to the table, and as they are joining us, I will turn it over to council staff to take us through the packet.
Just some brief updates on scheduling. Today we'll be covering the general fund and the grant fund for the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. On May 1st, we'll be covering the Housing Initiative Fund portion of their budget, along with, we'll come back to the, last year's Fed Committee's guidance to look at the Preservation Fund. So we'll come back on that discussion topic on May 1st. And then on April 26th, next Wednesday, we'll be covering the rental assistance programs that both DHCA, HOC, and HHS administers in a joint committee with the HHS committee. Regarding the DHC's general fund and grant fund, pages the three tables on pages 2, 3, and 4 provide just a reference of the individual cost changes for each budget, for each fund. Overall, for the general fund portion of DHCA's budget, it's going up $1.3 million from the FY23 approved level, which is a 14.4% increase. Most of that increase is in the personal cost side, compensation, as well as some positions we'll cover later on in the discussion. That's about $1.2 million increase, or 15.6%. And the operating cost increase is relatively small, $158,000 increase, or 9%. Again, most of the increase is on the personal cost side. On the on page 6, section C of the packet, I'll talk about the vacancy staffing trends we've seen in the DHCA's budget. The table on that page, table C1, outlines all the positions that have been vacant for more than a year. Most of these positions, as you can see, are not funded, so they are in the budget, but they're funded at $0, and that means that those savings have already been realized in the past. There are a few positions that are funded. The numbers you see before you represent the general fund portion, which means that the other parts of those costs are in other budgets, such as the HIF or grant fund. So altogether, the three long-term vacant positions add up to about $100,000 in general fund dollars for FY24. I recommend deferring to the department to talk about what those positions are, what the recruitment plans are, and whether what the impact of taking them out of the budget might be.
Good afternoon. This is Paul Van Salem from the CM Finance Division Chief. One thing I want to clarify, the information presented in the packet in front of you, the data was generated from different kind of reports, so that is not really quite up to current. So currently, position that has been vacant in our department for more than 1 year, actually is only 2 positions, which is reside in the community development and neighborhood revitalization, and I shared that information with council staff yesterday to just kind of get the record clear. So the 2 positions that have been vacant for more than a year, one is the OSC position, Office of Services Coordinator. The other one is the Senior Planning Specialist position. And actually, when we have the new leadership, started a few months ago, we take the opportunity to reevaluate, what approach that we need to take to address these 2 positions from operational perspective, because our community development division, especially focused neighborhood, that have been tested to do more of, for instance, like capital budget we talk about, of facade easement program. They also, work together with other county agency to apply for additional state or federal resources. So we anticipate these 2 positions will be sufficiently to support the upcoming additional workload, and especially the approach that the ACA is taking right now for a lower grade position, for instance, like the grade 16 of the Office of the Service Coordinator. We're taking the opportunity to see if there's any additional need. We'd like to go through the reclassification process, and we will identify resources within the current appropriation to support the upgrading. I think that's the overall approach that DAC is taking to address those positions. We have about 5 vacant positions that is not funded, so just have an FTE but no dollar amount. This is years ago when the department, when the county went through the reduction
Could you explain what those 5 positions are?
Yes. 3.
And that's from the depths of the recession over a decade ago.
Yes, yes. So 3 of them are in the grant management positions. There's a 2 planning specialist position, and 1 is the executive administrative assistant position. And there's a 2 in the affordable housing. 1 is the OSC, the Office of Service Coordinator, and the other one is the planning specialist position.
Is there a reason why we don't just eliminate the positions in the budget? We've been keeping them unfunded for 12 or 13 years.
I think my understanding from previous DSC leadership, it depends on how the situation rise. If we need to, for instance, the grant funded position, if we are able to identify additional federal resources or state resources, then we can put the funding to those positions without creating additional FTE. We just need to move the money to support the position. So that's one of the plans. That's why it's
But we haven't
really
attempted to do that, nor do we have any plans to do that over the last 12 or 13 years.
I can get back to you in terms of how long those kind of positions been vacant. Not sure is that long, maybe 6-7 years. If I know it's not.
I would recommend
much
we eliminate
difference.
the positions in the budget. They're not funded. You can come back next year if you have an idea to use a position differently. I just think we go through this exercise. We're adding 137 new positions proposed this year. We haven't eliminated really a single position. We sometimes unfund positions, but I don't think it's a good practice. Personally, it has nothing to do with DHCA specifically. This is a carried over practice, so it's not a criticism. It's just a reflection of reality. But I personally think let's eliminate the positions. I think it will give you some flexibility, that if you have a better idea, you have new leadership with new ideas, which I appreciate, come forward with a different one. You can mention that you gave up 5 vacant unfunded positions last year. You had a better idea. Here's what it will do. Make the case for it. We'll have a public conversation about it. We'll decide next year, whether or not we fund it. I don't think there's any realistic scenario under which you're going to decide to go for a federal grant. It's going to fit perfectly into one of these 5 positions, and you're going to be able to execute it within this fiscal year. I mean, I just think departments don't like giving up positions, FTEs, which I get. It's not DHCA, every department. I used to work in a public agency. I didn't want to give up FTEs either, but at a certain point, if we're growing and we're not eliminating, then we're not really doing the type of rethinking of it as we should. So I would suggest that. I don't know if
Agreed.
others have a view.
Agreed.
Yeah, I have a view. I don't know. I'd like to hear. Go ahead.
No, sure. I will say that I rely on Popin because Popin has been with the county for many, many years, and I'm still getting used to the ins and outs of FTEs and how they're handled, how difficult it may be to create new ones. But yes, it totally makes sense what you're saying, and what we'll do, because I never want to agree to something in ignorance. We'll go back. We'll make an evaluation if there are any downsides to this, and if there are any reasons why 1 or 2 of them should be preserved, even if they're unfunded. And we'll get back to you by early next week with any comments. But as a good governance, and transparency issue, I think that what you're asking for is reasonable. I just don't want to say absolutely that we agree without fully understanding.
We have a tentative recommendation here. I think we can, before we get to the full council, you'll send us some information. We can revisit that if we need to, but I think for the time being, I don't think we have to come back for another meeting to discuss it. Councilmember Joanda?
Before I get rolled over here, let me just say, I think the problem with eliminating positions in a vacuum is that you don't know. You could come back and say, yes, we are going to use it. I'm assuming you're using LAPS on these positions now, right? Is it reflected in lapse?
Yes, but our lapse amount is about 100, if I remember correctly, about $150,000.
But they're
So it's
unfunded.
not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some
So
of
just-
them are
it's
grant
not
funds.
impact.
So in the general fund, it's only about 150, and the grant fund is a grant fund because it depends on how much we receive each year.
Right.
Lapse is only for funded positions.
So none of these are funded.
Yeah, they're not funded.
Yeah.
They haven't been
So
funded.
then the what is the budgetary?
Zero. It's not a savings, just to be clear.
Yeah.
There's no budgetary impact.
Right, right.
We
So-
are sitting on vacant positions that have been vacant that change when we say we have 1,500 vacant positions, a lot of them aren't even funded. Some of them haven't been funded for 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 15, 20 years.
Right.
And if we're going to actually have these conversations during budget, it's very difficult to distinguish a vacancy of a position that we actually want to fill and an unfunded position that we have no plans or intention of filling. We're just essentially hoarding in departments to see if at some later date we might change our mind at some point. But that's what the annual budget process is for, and I think that the council should be more a part of those conversations. You come back, you make the case, here's the position, here's what it would do, here's why we want to do it, here's how much it would cost, as opposed to having an idea for a new position or a new grant or something else, and you have to figure out how you can kind of make it work within the confines of the FTE that you had and come back, and it just, to me, it's not the best practice.
Yeah, and just to finish my point there, I just don't think it's also a best practice just to eliminate positions that we didn't create, and we don't know if or when the executive would want to use them. They're not costing any money. It's one thing if you're eliminating something that is to try to save money. That's not the case here. It's just eliminating to eliminate. I think it's a reasonable request to get back and hear from the department, at least from this council member's perspective. And if it's the committee's will today to do it, we'll take it back up at full council. But I don't know why we should do an organized, thoughtful process of removing positions. And I've said it when we did our budget overview. I got a commitment from OMB and from the CAO and from the county executive subsequently to do that. It hasn't happened as quickly as we would like, but I'm not comfortable on the fly just saying that we're going to just remove positions that have no budgetary impact. So I think everyone would like to hear back from you. There may be a decision
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. We're going to hear back from the department. We're not taking any final action. We're making recommendations to the council. We'll have a tentative recommendation to look at these 5 positions and hear back from the committee. I don't think we need to come back as a discussion point in a committee session. If we don't make a recommendation, we would have to come back in a meeting to talk about it. I don't think that's necessary. We can handle that offline before we come back to the full council. For now, it will be a tentative recommendation. It has no service impact. It has no budget impact. It's about a governance practice here where we do have lots and lots and lots of unfunded vacant positions throughout county government, not just in this department, that I do think at a certain point we got to make a decision of, are these positions that we intend to use or not? We've had significant increases in positions where we haven't used these positions. We're actually talking about, just to point out, increasing positions in this budget, which we're going to get to in a few minutes, where we didn't utilize these positions for a variety of reasons, rather than trying to,
Could I just
push back too hard. I think anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, just finish my thought here. I think that if it doesn't have a budgetary impact, I'm not even clear on the council's authority to eliminate a position that doesn't have a budgetary impact. I don't even think we can do it. So let's start with that. But that aside, which we can get legal guidance on, I don't see any councils down here right now, and I'm not going to put it on you to try to guess on that. But we control the budget. If the FTE exists, which we would have been done through legislation or some other process, that's a different process. So, let's figure that out. But again, I'm all for doing a comprehensive review and removing vacancies positions that aren't being used. I'm not comfortable doing it this way. So if there is a recommendation, if we can legally do it, it's a 2-1. I'm not for it. But let's get that information back from everybody else. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. The positions are created in the budget. They get eliminated in the budget. That's the way that it works. There are much smaller number of positions that are established in the code. I don't believe that any of these 5 positions were established in the code, although we can look into that. Unless they were established in the code, in which there are a relatively small number of positions in county government that are either established under the charter or established in the code, then those are added and would subsequently be eliminated via a legislative vehicle or a charter change. Absent of that, most of the 10,000 positions in county government get added and get decided in the budget, which is the main authority of the county council. But I appreciate the points that are being made. It sounds like we have a 2-to-1 recommendation here. We'll hear back from you before we make any final decisions. If there are concerns operationally of what the department has plans for, we can adjust that moving forward. But I appreciate the comments of the department and Mr. Bruton and Ms. Salem, and we can move forward here. So do you want to move forward on the positions? We talked about the vacancies, but the new positions?
Yeah. So next we'll turn to section E, which covers the FY24 cost changes in the general fund portion of DHCA's budget. I'll start with the revenue and fee change proposal that's in this budget. The recommended budget is recommending a 10% increase in the rental licensing fee. And before I get into that a little bit, I just want to highlight on table E1 what the macro changes are in this budget on the general fund side. In the FY23 approved budget for DHCA, there was a gap of about $438,000 between the expenditures in their general fund and the revenues they collect in the general fund. Most of these revenues come from the rental licensing fee. In the FY23 estimated, which came over in the second quarter of this year, that gap has increased to about a little less than $1 million. And that's primarily because the rental licensing fee revenues have not been coming in as assumed in the budget. For FY24, the gap is now $2.3 million between expenditures and revenues. And that, again, is mostly driven by the compensation adjustments in the personnel on the expenditure side, and then also just revisions to the revenue projections on the revenue side. So that just sets the context is that gap assumes the new positions that are being requested as well as the 10% rate increase. So even with those changes, that's where we are for FY24. The next couple of pages and tables kind of highlights the history of the rate changes. Altogether, the bottom line is with the 10% increase in the rental licensing fee, the department expects to generate about $790,000 additional revenues in 24. And again, that's assumed in the budget. The new positions that are being requested, there's a total of 4 positions totaling $400,000. That is that's not the full cost because there's a quarter year's worth of lapse typically assumed. So you can add 25% of that number for the full cost. But it's $400,000 is the cost impact in 24. And again, I'll outline some of the positions before we can dive deeper. The one position would be for the Office of Landlord Tenant Affairs. It's an Investigator 3. We did add 2 positions in 23 approved for ULTA, a manager and a Investigator 3. So this would be another Investigator 3 position next year. There is an Admin Specialist 3 position for ULTA being requested. There is currently no admin support for that team. There is a Code Inspector 3 position for code enforcement, and finally a Program Specialist for the Licensing and Registration Program. So altogether 4 positions. There's attachments 4 and 5 3 and 4 cover some of the justification that the department's provided for those positions, but we can turn it over.
Yeah, let's have the department explain the 4 positions, and you can expound upon what's been shared in the packet.
Sure, thank you very much. We take very seriously our responsibility as a department to enact and administer the laws and regulations of the county that pertain to our duties. And part of the reason why we have requested these 4 positions is because we have had a backlog. We have not been able to adequately meet our responsibilities. And we definitely want to do that. We're trying to improve processes all the time, improve how we do things, but sometimes you just need the person power in order to get through these. And so today we have 3 managers here who are going to talk about the 4 different positions that we're requesting, to give you a bit more detail on what that work would be, why it's important, the statistical information we've put behind it to support our request for these positions. And so we're going to first start off with Nicole Catravanos, who is the manager for the Office of Landlord Tenant Affairs, and she'll address our request for the Investigator 3 position as well as the Administrative Specialist 3 position for Ulta.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everybody. Before I go into the details as to the positions we're asking for and why we're asking them in the data, I think it's important to provide council members a little bit of a context of what it is our investigators in office do. Currently, the Office of Landlord and Tenant Affairs is staffed with 7 investigators that respond to general complaints, plus 1 investigator that responds to homeless prevention relocation assistance. And that's basically an investigator that responds to emergency situations when there's condemnations or where there's an imminent risk of eviction. The other 7 are on rotation for the general complaints that we've received. The services that they provide are partitioned into 3 main areas. One, we have service request, which is when landlords and tenants from the community call the office for inquiries, email the office for inquiries, or come in person. Our current investigators are dedicating almost 2 full days a week just to respond to service requests. So emails, phone calls, walk-ins. In addition to that, they have their complaints that have increased significantly within the past year. We have a 38% increase in complaints filed within 2021 and fiscal year 2022. And a 34% increase in service requests during that time period as well. And that service request inquiry doesn't actually include all the email inquiries that we have because we didn't have a system in place to track those. So the assumption is that the service request inquiries are probably significantly more than that. And then throughout that complaint process, they have to investigate, they have to contact parties, they have to schedule a conciliation, aka a mediation. If the mediation is fruitful, they draft consent orders, they implement them, potentially issue citations if there's any violations. And then if the mediation is not fruitful, they have to then refer it to the commission. And once it gets referred to the commission, they have to draft detailed, almost legal-like case summaries, and they have to follow through with the hearing process and potentially an appeal process as well. The 7 investigators that we have in the past year that I've been with the office, I've realized are just very dedicated individuals, very well versed. Most of them have been there for quite some time. And they've been doing all of this without any administrative support. So the work that they've done, despite the fact that we have a backlog, I have found very impressive in my year at DHCA, and I think it's important to keep that in mind when we're talking about what the reality is as far as our inability to meet the demands of the public. So that's a little bit of a context. In addition to that, we have 2 amazing volunteers that have been with us for about 5 years, and they dedicate a total of 16 hours a week on providing us assistance with service requests. We rely on them heavily, but you know, they're both retired and they're both over the age of 80. And you know, they like to take vacations.
Could you share their? I don't know that I've met the 2 volunteers who work in the office. Could you share that with the committee? And I think we'd love to meet them and recognize them for their work and their service as a committee. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads here, but if you could follow up with us and share that with us, we'd love to have an opportunity to thank them for their service to the department and to the county. And I think as a committee, I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah. And we rely heavily on them. And when they can't come in for whatever reason, whether it's personal or medical reasons, the public suffers. And in addition, there's the manager position, which is the one that I hold, right? So because of this increase of demand in services, the increase of complaints, the increase of the service requests, we've also in the past year had 3 staff members have to take extended leave for medical and personal reasons. We had a change, obviously, in leadership. My predecessor, Rosie, retired, and when she did, our staff stepped up and helped with a lot of those managerial positions or roles or responsibilities. There's a backlog. I can't give all the reasons before. That's what I've been able to gather in the past year. and we are in need of an investigator and an administrative support. The idea is that with an additional investigator, initially they will help with the backlog. My predecessor, Rosie, is still on contract as an SPS contract, so working as a team between Rosie, the new investigator, and myself, we would hope that we could get rid of that backlog in a year and a half times, because it is significant, and that the administrative support would be able to alleviate a lot of the work that the investigators do, alleviate a lot of the work that I'm currently doing, so then I can support staff and provide the managerial assistance that staff currently needs.
I would like to add one thing regarding the unique services that Ulta provides in mediation between landlords and tenants. The mediation keeps people from going to court. Not everybody is kept from going to court, but this service keeps people. You could look at it as eviction mitigation work, and many jurisdictions around the country are trying to create these kinds of mediation services, which we already, thankfully, whoever put them together in the past already have. And so they are incredibly valuable. And I think we should, recognize, and we should trumpet this more, that we have this unique service here that most places in the country are trying to create to try to mitigate the impacts of eviction, which we've all become much more aware of over the past several years.
And it should be noted that over 90% of our cases are successfully mediated. They don't end up going to the commission. And we do work closely with the district court to receive guidance. We have a meeting scheduled in the next 3 months that was facilitated with Judge Koch, the district court administrative judge, for our commissioners to receive training and guidance on implementing the law in their hearings as well.
Appreciate that. So I'll put my cards on the table. I think we need an investigator for sure. And I have historically in this committee, Councilmember Jawando and I in the previous, and we're going to get to this in a minute, and I don't want to preempt, but enforcement has been an ongoing issue. We have added positions previously, and so I definitely think that. I'm wondering if we might need more of that. I think the administrative I'd like to learn a little bit more about, in terms of if we had limited ability to add positions, whether investigators and enforcement, shouldn't be the focus versus administrative, and if you had a view on that.
The role that I don't necessarily want to speak to, I'm not well versed with all the needs of the other offices in the department. As far as how Ulta would be utilizing that OSC, that administrative specialist, it would cut down on the work that the investigators have to do. So since the investigators do not have administrative support, they spend a lot of time doing administrative work, whether it's issuing letters, whether it's setting up mediations, whether it's preparing. Every single time they have a hearing, they will spend 2 or 3 days just preparing for the hearing. So the administrative support would serve similar to what a paralegal serves like for an attorney, and they would also provide support to management.
I will say, I like real-time negotiations about things. If the council was interested in providing, instead of administrative support, an extra investigator, could our budget at its current level support?
It's a different number. That was going to be my next question. It's definitely a different number.
Right.
You mean the current budget?
The budget, the proposed budget for FY24.
I had to take another.
Well, the administrative specialist is 63,768 as budgeted. I'm guessing that's at 75% of cost, because
this is the lapse.
this is a 25% lapsed position. To Councilmember Jawanda's point earlier, when we're adding new positions, we assume we can't hire them on July 1st. That it's going to take a few months to onboard. The investigator is 114,382, so it's much more expensive. I just, and inspector, it's 143,756. I think the other question I was going to ask, then I'll turn it over to colleagues. Councilmember Jawanda, I know has questions, and I imagine Councilmember Fani Gonzalez will as well. These are three. Both the housing code inspector and the investigator are investigator 3 and housing code inspector 3. Could you just is there a difference within the department of the type of work that an investigator 1, an investigator 2, and an investigator 3 would be doing?
Kamala Robinson, who's the manager of our code enforcement.
Because obviously those probably come with different budgeted dynamics as well, and I think a question of would more people at a lower level help offset the workload, or one person at a higher level? I just think it's worth us understanding as a committee.
So for a code inspector, 1, 2, or 3, but we also can underfill as low as a grade 16, which is beginning and intern, intern position. They start from the beginning training, but can they offset what the offset of work? Yes, because they're in a learning stage. So when they come in, they start at 1, they learn different things, then they move up to a 2, where they're eligible for competitive promotion.
Is it the type of calls that I'm just trying to understand?
So it's
the different roles of an investigator or an inspector. A 1 obviously less seasoned, less experience. So are they doing certain types of investigation, certain types of code enforcement calls versus a 2 and a 3, or is it just based on experience? I just think it's important for us to understand.
Oh, okay. So the inspector and investigator are totally different. So the investigators are for Alta, and they investigate the complaints that come in where it's leases or things of that nature. The inspectors actually do the actual code, the inspections.
Right.
So those two are different.
Yeah, sorry. I'm between investigators or among investigators and among inspectors that are different jobs. These are 3 positions. So I'm assuming there's an investigator 1, there's an investigator 2, and there's an investigator 3, or is there not?
There isn't. The category that they're placed.
So maybe we just shouldn't have a category for that. That's what I'm trying to ascertain, if we're going to have more people, because we need people to do this work. And we had a long hearing here that you all were part of, and we heard about many of the challenges that we face to just be able to answer the calls, both for investigators and for inspectors, which are different jobs, but it's similarly important work. This is about responding to concerns that residents have about their housing, in different parts of the house, but same purpose and mission, right? To have safe and dignified housing. So there aren't 1 and 2s, there's just 3s?
Yes, if I may provide a little bit additional explanation. So each job series, they have like a level 1, level 2, and level 3. So when we create a new position for each job classification or job title, usually you start with high, because this is sort of career path for people. We can underfield people coming in, depends on the applicant, whatever we receive. So sometimes we get a very talented, experienced people that fit into the level 3. We don't want to let it go, but sometimes it depends on the candidates that come to the picture. So it's kind of strategy for the department. We create the job series, and each job series, yes, like Councilmember Friesen described, we have the 1, 2, 3. Apply to investigator and send for housing call inspector. And so it really depends on what kind of talents that we're able to recruit through the process. And so the budget, as I described, if we underfield that, maybe depends on the salary negotiation, that maybe the budget created is not really what we can afford to pay that person that we end up hiring. Then we would have to generate saving from some other places to make sure we recruit the right kind of person.
Right.
So it's a lot of moving parts.
All right,
there.
the long story is, this is very confusing and probably a conversation for another day. I think it's a little odd if we have a 3 but not a 1 and a 2. I think most people would think that's a little odd. But my specific question to this conversation was whether or not having multiple people at a lower level perhaps would help relieve some of the concerns, and it sounds like that's not really a viable option at this point. So for the time being, let me turn it over to Councilmember Joanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate the explanation and all the hard work. You mentioned the backlog. Just how big is the backlog? You've been avoiding saying it, but I think we should say it.
271 cases.
All right, 271 cases.
For complaints.
And do you know how long that goes back? Do you know, what's the oldest case?
2 years, a year and a half.
Okay,
I don't have the
so-
exact date, but it's about a year and a half. So,
Yeah, so about a year and a half. So someone complained a year and a half ago about their house not being habitable. There's people we haven't responded to yet.
So I haven't had the time to be able to go through all the complaints. Sometimes a case doesn't follow through because there could be lack of communication from either party.
Sure.
It could be because of the investigator not prioritizing it. It could be because one of the parties may have requested more time to gather information. But the point that at the end of the day, there's been cases that have been open
Right. I'm not
for
saying it's
over
all
a
of
year,
them, but
and they
there's-
have not been closed.
Yeah.
They have not been
Right.
resolved.
There might have been an initial contact, or it's not,
Yes.
it's not resolved. So, yeah, that's obviously a significant issue and something we wouldn't want to see. And I know you said, combined with that, you have a 38% increase in the number of complaints, and that's in the last fiscal year,
Correct.
and then 34% of service requests. Distinguish that for me. What is that? What's the
So
difference?
the service requests are individuals that call and have inquiries, general inquiries, not about their complaints, but just
Right.
have general inquiries about landlord-tenant law and disputes and how to
Right.
resolve them. And those come via phone, email, and walk-in.
And you're
We
not-
only have documentations for the phone calls and the walk-ins, not the emails.
Okay, so we need to figure that out too.
We have started documenting. We started
Yeah.
documented over 6 months ago. We
Okay.
started documenting our email inquiries and putting it into our system.
Because I mean, obviously, we just spent all this money on this side for Indigov to track casework in part, which we refer to you.
Right.
If it's in the housing issue, for example, and we're tracking it if it comes in through phone, email, or so. I
And
think
that's part
you
of
all
the
should be able to
support that
track
the administrative
Could help,
individual
yeah.
would do
And
as well.
You got where I'm going here. I think a big part of helping people is being able to talk to them, intake their issue, get it down, understand it, and then use everyone else in the organization at their highest best use. And to the discussion we were just having about the investigator versus the code inspector, I think that I would want your view. From my perspective, it would seem that the admin would be very important, because if you have someone at a higher level of investigator, who, you can have their time be more well spent if there's more front-end admin done on the intake, understanding the issue, and getting them out. But I could be wrong. It just seems like that would be defer to you, because you're the ones doing it every day. But could you speak to that? Because if we're going to have to make tough choices, I think there's going to be universal agreement that we need more investigators to get that backlog down, which we all agree is too high.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other position, do you think the admin's more important? Because I know how hard it is. I've most of my life I've not had an admin, and when you're trying to answer the call, do the email, then go do the substantive work, then come back and write the report, that's a lot. So but I defer to you all. You're the ones doing it each and every day in your team. What's your view?
I believe that adding an administrative specialist would be beneficial in multiple ways. One, we'd be using individuals at the highest, making sure that individuals are utilizing their highest skill set. So our investigators are very well trained on the law, on mediation, on drafting these amazing consent orders and packets, and they spend a significant amount of time doing administrative work. And since they don't specialize on that because they don't have enough time to dedicate that, what an administrative support could bring to the table is better documentation of our cases, obviously providing assistance in everything that's related to scanning, printing, creating packets, but also everything that they'll also be able to provide assistance in us meeting our mandates. So for example, we have an Open Meeting Act mandate that requires all our decisions and orders to be posted and to be public, and all our
Right.
minutes to be public, and all our agendas to be public. And we
And the
don't.
who's posted?
have-
Who's doing that now? You guys, same people.
I mean,
Okay.
I've been trying to do it as much as I can. Investigators don't have the capacity or the time to do them.
Okay.
So it's
What is going to help you get the number of backlog down the most? That's the kind of the question I'm getting at here. It seems like you're saying, that one of each of these positions, but I kind of heard Mr. Brunton saying maybe go to investigators. What's the view?
I'll bring another example into this. During my time in the District of Columbia, I worked a lot with legal services organizations, and they do somewhat similar work. Take in tenant complaints, deal with adjudication, in this case actually going to like landlord-tenant court or housing conditions court. And they had the same issue about should they have admin specialists take care of intake and preparing files and folders, getting information for the lawyers who are doing the actual lawyering versus having more lawyers who could take on more cases and deal with those. And honestly, there's no right answer to this. I saw legal services organizations go different ways on this. And so that's why I deferred to Nicole, because she knows the department best, as to what she thinks would work. So to get at both of your points, either would help. But then I deferred to Nicole because she knows it more intimately. And I did want to just add a little caveat. When Nicole said that she hasn't gotten through all the different cases and everything, I do want to note that she's done an amazing job. For several months, she was also managing our Office of Common Ownership Communities in addition to ULTA as we were searching for a new manager for that. And so, just there are reasons why she hasn't gotten through all that, and that's because she was sacrificing a lot of her time to manage two of her offices.
Yeah, well, no blame on that. I've seen her out at community events and 9 o'clock at night as well. So I know that the whole team is working very hard. So I'll pass it back to the chair. It sounds like what I'm hearing is that you'd like one investigator and one admin from the staff on the ground level. I'd be willing to support that because that's what your team is asking for, even the team that's not speaking, that's nodding. So, but prefer to colleagues, but I just want that was helpful for me.
I'll just say in my office, we had a period of time where call Nicole was a very frequent refrain because of all the various jobs that you were undertaking. So certainly I can attest to that as well. I have a few questions, but I'll turn to Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez first.
I'm going to be the bad one here. And I do appreciate all your work, Nicole. I have also seen you out in the community in pretty late at night as well for meetings. I would say I would emphasize input. Are we going to say that start selecting high priority, and all that today? Okay. I would not put administrative as a high priority. That is not for me. For me, what I need, especially going out in my district and having issues in Twin Brook, in Aspen Hill, now in Glenmont, I need more code enforcement. I need more investigators on the field. That's my high priority. Your jobs, I am so sorry, it's also to do all the administrative work. As part of your duties as code enforcement officials or inspectors, that's part of your job. And we do not have the money to say yes to everybody. It sounds great. Honestly, I wish I could say, yes, I'm gonna give you everything that you're asking for, but that is not reality. I will switch and have at least 2 code enforcement people, especially knowing everything that I know since I got into this gig in December. My first the first thing that I did since I got elected was going out in Twin Brook with you. You need more people doing that work outside, not in the office. Not in the office. That's not a high priority. So I would say I could eliminate actually the administrative job right now, but I would say priority and not high priority if you want to do it. But that's me. And the code inspectors and investigators are key. And they better be bilingual, by the way, when you start hiring. I'm telling you, we need more Spanish-speaking code enforcement specialists, investigators, at some point more French-speaking too. It's a huge need. And having a translator, translator service is not the same. And I have seen code inspectors going out in the community and having the cell phone to translate. It's not efficient, and I know it's a struggle to find people that fits your criteria, and I'm here telling you, let me help you, okay, when you put the job announcement out there to do this. So that's my take. I'm straightforward to the point without so much. And I wish I can say yes to everything, but that's just not. If I say yes to you, I'm going to have to say yes to every single department that is going to be coming in front of us, and that's just not going to happen. So that's it.
Oh, well, I appreciate you're going to take yes, a certain yes for an answer. Investigators are more important to
Yes.
us, and to me, it's the work that we are dealing with in our offices every day. It's the work that you and your team are dealing with. I think we need that. It's mission critical, and so I think that is the high priority. There's absolute agreement here. I probably came into this meeting, frankly, thinking that we could do without the administrative support. You've convinced me that there's a benefit here and a need here. So I agree that it should be different. That it shouldn't it shouldn't be at the same priority. So high priority and priority would be where I would land. We'll work it out. I just realistically, I think it's going to be hard to fund all of the priorities that we have on the reconciliation list, but I hear you. I want you to know that you have successfully convinced me, which sometimes is saying something. I did have a question that related to this. So, DHCA, does DHCA not provide administrative support to the office, like broader DHCA? Like, is there administrative?
Yes, we have about 5, I think if I remember the number correct, 5 or 6 office service coordinator throughout the department, but they provide their specific admin support to their own program. So for instance, that we have one admin staff under the multifamily program, and we also have another admin staff for affordable housing and PDU program. We have another admin person for the community development overall co-inspector, co-enforcement division, and another admin staff for the licensing, because all the payment, all the process. And in my finance and administration division, I have the admin specialist position. It's not really OSC, but it's much higher level to help with all the financial transaction. So that's where we are right now. So for OTA or even some other program, they don't really, like neighborhood revitalization, they don't have a admin support. Grant management team don't have a admin support, and same as OTA. So we are doing the best to make sure everybody can back each other up, but certain program, because their specific workload, text, and whatever responsibility, it's probably need to have their own administrative support instead of move people around.
Yeah, to me, there's 2 different aspects of this. Some of it is the paralegal type work that was being discussed. I understand that to have generalists helping with that would be very difficult because it's specialized work that you need to be trained and knowledgeable in what this investigative type work looks like. That's what I think, if this position is going to go through, to me, exclusively, that's what this administrative person should be focused on. On all of the broader office-based issues, including Open Meetings Act compliance and posting of agendas, the broader office should be helping on that. So if because the idea that Nicole's time or any investigator or code enforcement time, given the fact they are drowning with the amount of backlog that they have, is being spent posting minutes. I think we need to be providing support to frontline service employees, and this is an office that does frontline service, some of the most challenge that we have in the county. So 2 requests subsequent to budget that I would ask for, and it sounds like we are asking similar questions and have similar concerns here. One is, could you share with us broadly the administrative support structure? The positions, what the positions do, who they're supporting, just so we know, because I think it'd be helpful for us to understand that. And then, to come back to us thinking through this question of, how are there opportunities, even without a position, to reduce some of the administrative burden, particularly on the non-specialized aspects? I'm not asking somebody in another, division to help write a report or to prepare a case. That's not reasonable. But on the broader, generic, general-based office and county government functions that are virtually the same across any office and any type of meeting, I really think that we ought to be providing help that's clearly needed. So if you can come back to us with some thoughts on that, I think that'd be great.
We agree. We will absolutely do that, and we've been working with our existing admin support staff, those who are not already overtaxed, who may have some excess capacity. We've been working with getting them to take on administrative functions within union rules that for other departments, for other parts of the department that don't have administrative support.
Okay, thanks. So come back to us with that. It sounds like we're going to recommend. The last question I think is related to this, and it's also related to the next topic, and then we can just move into the next topic if we can. But these are non-tax supported positions. These are through fees, rental fees, exclusively or partially. Could you just explain that?
Both the position costs and the fees go into DH's general fund. So they're part of the general fund. So they are tax supported in some sense, right? The rental fees are not taxes, but they go into general fund and they help offset tax supported expenditures. So that's how it works. So if these positions if the rate increase were approved, it would fully cover these 4 positions and have some available for other costs. If the rate increase were not approved, these would have an impact on the general fund, on tax supported general fund.
So let me elaborate a little bit more. Those positions in the budget, from budget perspective, is all general funded. However, the funding source coming to general fund is from licensing fee. So licensing fee with all the rental property, that licensing fee 100% supported the OTA program, our code enforcement program, and then the licensing and registrations program. So this is a 3 critical program that fully supported by with the licensing fee. And as Naeem explained earlier, the reason that we need to increase the licensing fee because the 5 years ago, with the personnel wages adjustment, the rate of the increase has been significant over the year. However, the fee has been remained stagnant. So it's a gap there. So this is a time when we evaluate. This 3 program is supposed to be self-sufficient. So we rely on the fee to fully cover without getting to the general fund tax supported portion.
Yeah, it's an important point, I think, because I think we're going to be making a couple of decisions that are related to this, and I will put out there I have been historically resistant to rental fee increases because it increases the cost of rental housing, which is already too expensive, but I think it's needed here. And so just to put my cards on the table on that, we have huge needs, particularly in these 2 areas. That we all recognize, and we do have to pay for them. And so I just wanted to note that. But so the 3 offices, is there a percentage of those that are covered by the fees? Was it originally 100%? Now it's less because we haven't raised the fees, or it's 100%?
Yeah, I can share the detail with council staff or your office. So the department had to track those kind of information over the years.
We're only not considering it non-tax supported because it goes into the general fund?
So the rental license fee covers all 3 offices fully. Then it also covers some of the administration team's costs, but those costs are also covered by tax supported funds. So it's a mix depending on what office you look at, but overall for the entire DHCA general fund, the rental license fee only covers all but 1.8 million for my chart here.
Yeah,
2.3 million. Yes.
For moving forward, not for this budget, for moving forward, I think it would be helpful when we make the case for rental license fee costs and for these inspectors, if we treat it and make it clear that these are specifically paying for code enforcement. These are specifically paying for investigators. You are being charged a fee for the agreement, the social contract that you are engaging in, that you are renting out your housing and you are agreeing to abide by living standards in that housing, and we have to pay to ensure that you are following those rules. I think it's not clear when you look at the budget that that's the case, and I think it's important as we talk about these moving forward that we make that a bit more clear than it is, that these are 3 divisions that are funded through these fees, like with permitting and like with other areas. Those are essentially enterprise funds, and they pay for the cost of doing the work and, you know, the administrative costs of carrying out the work.
So I hear you, and I think this is a conversation that department and finance, OMB, or even the executive office, we need to look at that, because on the current accounting structure or financial structure in our system, the fee is not treated as the permitting services fee, it's the enterprise fund. So they have their own accounting, their own system. The fee generated from rental licensing is considered as part of the general fund. So that's why the budget is, programmed as such. So we hear your recommendation, we hear your suggestion, and I think this is a conversation going forward.
It's worth
We need to
exploring,
tackle it.
because I do think it would allow us to better make the case and better have the conversation that these are departments that are funded through rental fees, and when rental fees go up, it's to fund the departments. And then it will be our job to keep those things aligned, and if we need to cover them, subsidize them in certain down years in order to maintain critical services, then that's the conversation that we will have. But we're not going to figure that out for this budget, but I do think it's a conversation that's worth having. I'll turn to Councilmember Joanna.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on the action we're taking. So I understand we're going to do high priority for the investigator, priority for the administrative. And are we going along with the rest of these, or are we going to go through?
I think we're going to go through them.
Got it.
We're
We're
going
going to go one by one.
Yeah, we're going to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just on the first two.
On the first two.
Perfect.
For Ulta, and then now we're going to go in. We talked a bit about code enforcement, because I don't,
Right.
you know, it's like the left hand and the right hand. It's hard to talk about one without the other, but they are different offices, different teams, and it's a different request. So why don't we turn to the department, and you can share with us your views on this.
Okay, so currently we have, we're slated for 35 full-time inspectors. And this new position that we're asking for would do a couple of things. It would help us eliminate the backlog that we have for inspections, especially with the troubled properties.
Councilmember Joanna is going to ask you, what is the backlog, so you can say it. So I'll preempt it.
So I don't have the number of the backlog, but what I can say is, just to make sure, you know, we prioritized on the troubled property and at risk for for inspections. So the compliant properties, we kind of step back with, because those can kind of go a little longer because they were compliant, so that we can ensure that during this fiscal year that we're in now, we get those done, troubled and at risk. And I know that's important, but I can get you that number. In addition, what we wanted to do with the new position was, as we spoke before, currently we don't do inspections for any single family or condo rental housing that come on board. So we wanted to, once the backlog is done, we wanted to utilize this position to inspect all rental properties coming online prior to issuing a license. And so that's something we don't currently do. It's something that's probably needed, so that we know what's going on in that property before the tenants occupy it.
But not ADUs now, right?
Well, we do ADUs too.
But not before they're built.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
We
good.
do a preliminary before they're built, so it's a preliminary inspection. But yeah.
So okay, so you're basically asking for two. You have two requests here. I just want to make sure. One is for the Housing Code Inspector 3, which is a position that's $143,756, and that is.
That's also include vehicle costs, because the
Yes.
inspector, they need a vehicle.
Yes. Okay. I was going to say, could you explain the cost? I remembered. I knew I remembered the reason for it, and then I forgot the reason for it. Now you've explained the reason for it, so you preempted my question. Thank you. So that includes the vehicle. That's not just salary and benefits. That's the total cost to the county. It sounds like there is very significant, support for that. You have here you have a priority for that, but a high priority for outreach and revenue collections. I mean, I personally think the high priority is the code inspector, and I think you heard from colleagues that there's some agreement there. Can you explain the revenue, the outreach and revenue collection position?
So Tiffany Johnson, who's the manager of the licensing office, can handle that.
Oh, sorry. So this is for the licensing office.
Yes.
All right. So do you want to take these up Well, we'll take them up together. Why don't we?
Whichever way works for you.
I think we've all showed our cards here, but why don't we hear from licensing on this request?
Hello, my name is Tiffany. Thanks for having me today and considering my position. I just wanted to say that the rental market has grown tremendously over the last 5, 10, 15 years, and our staff size has remained relatively the same. The program specialists are responsible for facilitating the whole licensing process of single-family condos, ADUs, multifamily properties, and then also making sure they maintain a good licensing registration database, which would require extensive follow-up for lead compliance, owner's information, license fee collections, the issuance of notices of violations, as well as citations. They are also responsible for registrations of common ownership communities throughout the county as well, in which, again, we have to do a lot of follow-up. We have to make sure they're in compliance. We have the board directors. We have the rental house list, also issuing notices of violations and also citations to make sure they remain in compliance. At the current time, we currently only have 2 program specialists, and they handle a tremendous workload. Don't want to give an exact number, but we're going to say we have in the neighborhood of at least 100,000 licenses throughout Montgomery County. And a new position pretty much would give us a more efficient way of doing things, spread the workload amongst all the employees. And then I'm not going to say we have a backlog per se, but we have missed opportunities where we're able to generate more revenue for the departments, where we could be issuing these citations, but it becomes a toss-up whether we go after the citations or we process in the new applications, or like what comes first, because we don't have the staff. So also with the new position, we can do outreach. There's many people that I feel are still renting without the license, as also refers, they refer cases to us in code enforcement, where they have gone out or spoke with tenants where they're not licensed. But again, they refer it to us. We can start the process of saying, hey, get licensed, but the follow through is just not efficient when we don't have a big enough staff.
Tiff, oh, sorry, you want to?
Sorry, one thing I want to add is Tiff and his team also in charge of the conducting the annual rental survey. So this year we are doing both single family and multifamily. So with the staff, the survey actually started on April 1st. Just right now. So in the process is when we send out the survey, there's a lot of a notification follow-up. The people, if they see the survey questionnaire, they don't know how to answer, they call the staff. Staff would have to answer it. So this is like 1 to 2 months of process. Then we collect the data, analyze the data, then come to the July. This is the time for the rental licenses to make the payment. The staff drive right into it to make sure all the license and all the documentation is in place.
So, just to make sure I understood that. So we have 2 program specialists.
Yes.
Those 2 program specialists do the rental survey as well as all of the work that you just...
Yes, so we are responsible for the annual rental survey. So we do have a tremendous amount of calls that are currently coming in and emails that people are asking, do we have to do the survey? How do we respond to the survey? And it's just a lot, but yes.
Doing the rent, when we say we do the rental survey,
we send them out to all of the landlords in our database.
And do follow-up and citations for non-compliance.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of pushing send on an email. There's a lot that that goes into it, and we have hired multiple temps to handle the work overload, and even then, it's not being done. I want to make a more general point about all the things that Tiffany mentioned. It's as the number of rental units have grown, the staff hasn't grown, and so just that is an issue. But they're struggling to just keep up with those folks who actually do comply with licensing. We aren't able to track down all those folks who are running unlicensed, and that gets into the synergy with code enforcement and landlord-tenant affairs. And so we really need to have a more robust enforcement of licensing requirements, as well as citations for non-compliance with these things. And so, I mean, I was personally stunned that all the work you heard is being done by Tiffany and 2 staff members, plus sometimes temps on, you know, like an as-needed basis.
I have a couple questions. Let me turn to Councilmember Joanna first.
I'm equally stunned, and I understand why. Then I'm assuming in staff, this was a high priority from your perspective. That's how it made it in here. That was yeah. I would agree. I think there's a lot there that we ask of you. There's a lot that I've asked on the previous Fed committee, and what we asked in our last session of, we want to know this, we want to know X, Y, and Z about what's going on in the rental market, who's compliant, who's licensed and registered, who's not. I think because we want to have that data so we can make better informed decisions. So that's one point. 2, to your point that you just made, there's a big nexus between licensing and registration and it making it to your desks about problems, right? Because if you can nip that in the bud or be able to stop some of that from happening at the front end, or encourage people to be licensed and so they understand what their responsibilities are as as landlords, you're going to reduce, and what the rights are on obviously the side of the renters themselves, that's going to reduce some of this troubled properties and all that potentially. So I get why it's a high priority. I did not realize that it was 2 staff and you dealing with it. So I would personally be, I think the code inspector though still should be high priority, you know, as well. But I think the way you've described it, this is a high priority too. You mentioned we want to be able to enforce the laws we have on the books. You know, we are always going to be majority complaint based, but the ability to even scratch the surface, and as you mentioned, single family homes, that's a huge issue. That's, you know, nearly 1/3 of our renting population are in single family homes. And so I think that's and that's often, I think, where you probably have, I would guarantee you probably that's where you have most of the unlicensure too. Would that be, do you think that's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We can follow up later on how many are actually licensed, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something? Okay. So I would be fine making them both high priority, just with that information.
Okay, so Councilmember Juwando would like to take the recommendation for the outreach and revenue collections as high priority, but make the Housing Code Inspector 3 position to a high priority.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Revenue collections were part of this. Do you have a number of what this position will allow you to generate in revenue?
Again, I don't want to be exact, so don't quote me, but
Don't worry, it's not like we're recording or anything.
so I did like a rough calculation, and we currently have roughly like, we're gonna call it like 3,500 properties that are non-compliant. If we're even able to touch 1/4 of that, we could probably generate in the neighborhood of like $400,000 for the community, just in citation money, like, because we just need to be able to have the staff to issue the citations and follow through with that process.
So this isn't even going and finding things we don't know
Yes.
about
No.
that are out there. This is just to process the citations that the code enforcement, the investigators investigate, the code enforcement goes out, does an enforcement activity, makes a citation, and it has to be processed and sent out and then followed up upon?
Correct. The unknown, I don't know how many properties are out there on Zillow or Craigslist or whatever. We don't know that yet, but if we had another staff member, we probably could investigate that.
And, you know, my old hat was in, you know, a tax agency, and collections are a pretty big part of that agency, and compliance is a very big division of that agency, like in any. But the collections are not done in-house. They're done by a third party, and they take a cut of whatever they collect. So you actually, you don't, the government doesn't come out of pocket for the collections. It's basically uncollectible accounts, and the firms, and every firm that I know of does it this way, they just take a set percentage of that, and the more they are able to collect, the better you are. Now there's a balance of not being an aggressive collections effort, and some firms are better than others, and that's part of the secret sauce of finding a vendor that does a good job and is diligent in doing the collections, with ones that are respectful and are treating taxpayers and residents the way in which a government and a public entity would want and expect, and that's not always easy. And so one thing for us to think about and consider at a certain point, depending on how many unpaid collections there would be, of whether or not because this could be a hugely exhausting effort to try to track down unpaid claims. So just it might be an area where we could discuss in the future of how we expect to collect ones that are uncollected. Like, do we have ones that are not collected for a long period of time, or is it just getting them out and doing the 1 or 2 follow-up processing?
We have some properties that are maybe multiple years, but majority of them like 1 or 2 years delinquent, if that's your question.
Yeah.
We do have enforcement, we do have leverage, but besides just gentle persuasion, because if you don't pay your licensing fee, you don't necessarily get to be to be a landlord. And so we do have more leverage than just pretty please.
And how long of not paying would your license be revoked?
So typically, if you are not paid by the registration
You have to be in
deadline,
good standing, right?
yes,
Yeah.
you should pretty much go to unlicensed status. And then at that point, you're unable to file for rent in court and stuff like that, so you would miss that opportunity to collect rent from your tenants.
But then, like the harsher penalty of losing your ability to run a rental establishment, that is an extremely rare thing to happen, because you would also engage in tenant displacement for something like that. And so we want to moderate responses to get people to pay up, but we do engage in escalatory behavior and there are things in the code and regulations that incentivize folks to have their license current. And as you said earlier, most of them are probably single-family folks.
Yes, that is true.
Who are just not as familiar because if they're just
These aren't
Right.
Property owners that have hundreds of units. They tend to have fewer units.
It's more. It's usually more out of
sophisticated
ignorance.
business operation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a view on this, or you?
No, I do think that one of the main complaints that I hear from people is that Montgomery County has all these different laws for everything. Uncle Sam is on your ear for everything, but yet we don't implement anything. So this goes by that, and making sure that we are actually implementing our laws and making sure that people are in line and that we have healthy housing. It's not just about having more housing, it's making sure that they're healthy. And that's why I really think we need to have more code enforcement of officers on the books. So I do think this is a high priority for me.
Okay, so I'm inclined to agree. Let's do all 3 as high priorities. Again, we're going to have to make some tough decisions in this budget, so no guarantees and no promises. I would like to follow up on the follow-ups after the budget. I think we've uncovered quite a bit here. This was helpful, not just in trying to help get to what you need, but to understand better of the department. We have to take a position here on the license fee as well. I already signaled where I was, Councilmember Joando, and all 3 of us, without objection, we will accept the license fee recommendation in order to cover these positions. And we're going to do 3 high priority, the 3 positions with the 1 administrative position as a priority, and we will take the recommendation as well. You're going to follow up with us about the 5 positions. I feel like you did pretty well here. You lost 5 of nothing and picked up 4 of something, which seems pretty good to me. But we will follow up and hear back from you. We'll treat that as a tentative committee recommendation. We can adjust before we go to full council. Once we hear back from you and get a response. But again, I don't think it requires us to come back for a subsequent meeting. There might be a little bit of disagreement here, but I think we can agree to that we don't need a meeting for it. Okay. Great. Anything else for the department?
Sure, just a couple of other little miscellaneous items. So the department is proposing shifting 1.6 FTEs from the grant fund to the general fund at a cost of $191,000. What's happening is that the grant fund, and specifically the CDBG grant, has a cap on how much personal costs can be charged. And with the increase in compensation and other changes over the years, that cap has been reached. Essentially, for 24, it's $695,000 above that cap. So DHCA is proposing shifting $191,000 to the general fund, and the rest, about $500,000, to the HIF. Council staff is.
Yeah, before you move on from that, I have a problem with this one. I understand you're not surprised, I'm sure, that I am concerned about this. The idea of taking money out of the HIF for affordable housing to cover this is concerning. We already are strained there. The department in recent months has, I think, stepped up and started to move projects in a way that it wasn't happening before, to the liking of the predecessor of this committee. We had asked for you to move projects. We'd asked for you to do more deals. That has started to happen, which I appreciate and want to acknowledge. I just have a real concern about that. We have work to do to clean up the HIF and make it clear of what this money is for and what it's being spent on. But I'm not supportive of moving the money to the HIF. But please explain the rationale and the need for this.
We don't want to get in trouble with HUD about overspending our CDBG funds, because that does not end well for a jurisdiction.
So a lot of DACA's positions are split funded. So not just it sort of depends on the kind of workload and the responsibility. So a lot of position depends on the percentage. So for instance, like my position actually is supported by general fund, MHI, and grant fund, because the kind of work that I'm doing. And so for CDBG, it's entitlement fund money come to the county. It's formula driven. So over the past several years, the money we have seen coming into the county has decreased, because the formula driven is calculated based on the population, based on income, based on all other factors. So the money coming to county, it's not something that we can control. However, because the labor distribution for its position, in terms of the percentage that have been defined several years ago, given the wages adjustment that have increased over the past several years, we have seen that portion of the grant funded position has cost more. So for instance, give a simple example, the same position 5 years ago maybe cost $20 per hour for that position. Because the wage adjustment have been increased over the past 4 or 5 years, that same kind of work would cost about $30 per hour. So that is kind of reached to the cap of the CDBG fund that we're allowed to charge to. So those people, the salary we still have to pay for. And so we are basically, depends on each job responsibility, the kind of a workload, and I share the detail with the council staff. So we make that suggestion, if there's a housing related responsibility, then we assign it to MHI. If it's just general work related work, then we assign it to general fund. So that's kind of make sure we comply with the federal requirement that we do not exceed the 20% requirement, and then we also, for those people that currently on the position, those incumbent have the appropriate funding resources to support their salaries.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend that we move. You have to do it. You have to comply with federal law. There's not a choice. Yes. It is a choice of how you fund it. And I feel very strongly that the 5.7 FTE requirement that it, effectively is what $695,592 equates to, should come out of the general fund. We have to cover the cost. This is the personnel costs that we have in order to carry out these functions, but they absolutely should not come out of the HIF operating, from my perspective. I just don't think that that's fair to our partners who are relying on those funds. I don't think it's consistent with what we are trying to do when we add funding to the HIF, which is for affordable housing programs, not to cover the personnel costs of federal grants, which is essentially what this is doing. And we should be advocating to our federal partners that the framework that they have for personnel costs are not reflective of a high cost area like Montgomery County. I think that seems to be part of the challenge, that the formula just doesn't work for us. But we can't fund it out of the HIF. It should be funded out of the general fund. It has to be funded. That's not an option and not a choice. That would be my suggestion, if depending on where colleagues are. Yeah, Councilmember Jondo.
Yeah, I just want to understand. So the grants are due, or for what? What do these people do? Just state that again. What is the function of the staff
So,
that you're shifting the cost of?
right. So, for instance, we have a focused neighborhood group that they do a lot of group home. They do the community revitalization project. A lot of their project work is funded with CDBG.
Sure.
So their personnel costs can charge to CDBG, or even multifamily staff. Some of the staff, we can use the CDBG money to support affordable housing creation and preservation. So some of the staff time can charge it to CDBG. Grant management team, we have 3 or 4 people that they simply just handle the federal grant management. So those
Right.
staff are charged to the CDBG or home.
Right.
And my staff, they are doing the budget, they're doing the thing, they handle those kind of things. Portion of their personnel costs we charge to CDBG. So we have a list of the personnel, depends on their workload, the tax responsibility. So we kind of allocate different kind of funding.
So the
source.
rationale was that what these folks are doing is related to things that are the goal of the HIF. Obviously, the HIF's a bit of a hodgepodge. It's used in a lot of different ways, related to housing. Obviously, finance is part of it. So was that why you said, okay, well, whatever we can charge the CDB, we're going to leave there, and then the other parts that are related to housing, like revitalization and multifamily, all these other things that are related to housing. You said that's why you put it in the HIF.
Correct.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's all at the end of the day coming from the same pot. So I don't have a strong feeling about moving to the general fund. It just means that there's other things that can't come from there's certain things that can't come from the HIF that if you put it in the general fund, we're saying that there's $600,000 less in the general fund and to do other things that are not housing related. So that is a choice. So okay, I'm not sure. So council staff was saying, go ahead.
Yeah, the HIF does contain other various funding sources: recognition tax, rental assistance, general fund transfers, and so it's right now the HIF budget includes the 4.1 FTEs, the $500,000. To move it to the general fund, I believe would be a reconciliation list item. We'd have to classify as priority or high priority. If we did that, it would be a direct hit to the general fund versus staying in the HIF where you have other funding sources. So yes, shifting it would free up resources in the HIF, but
it can't go to it'll be a full, what we basically be doing is deferring it to the full council because we have to do it. Mm-hmm. So the full council would have to decide whether we leave it in the HIF or whether we put it in the general fund.
Right.
So, yeah, so go ahead.
I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to agree with the department and just keep it in the HIF and move on. It's housing related. Move on.
Agreed.
Okay, well, I'm happy to lose. Let's reflect that as 2-1. I respect colleagues where they're coming from in the department. It does take $600,000 out of affordable housing. Just, we would be doing more affordable housing. We're cutting into what we're doing because the personnel costs have gone up, and so we're paying personnel costs because the federal grants don't cover them fully, and it eats into what we can do in affordable housing. So I just think you know, if you put it in the general fund, it will eat into something. The question is, do you eat into affordable housing? And the choice here is that we're eating into affordable housing. That's the decision, which I respect. I will also note that, yes, the HIF is a hodgepodge, but we're trying to undo that. We are working very hard to try to change it from being a hodgepodge so that it actually only does what we say it does, and we clarify this, and we've been working hard, you know, in partnership with the executive branch and council staff, and hopefully this committee will be taking that up soon. And so I don't want to use the hodgepodge nature of the HIF, because I think that's some of the reason why we get into this. I just will note before we close that it's convenient to say just put it in the HIF, then it doesn't have to go on the reconciliation list or other revenue sources. We make sure it gets in there, and you know, then all of a sudden you have a housing initiative fund that has a bunch of different things in it, some of which are tangentially housing, and some of them, frankly, are not really housing at all. And so, you know, we do have to get out of that. I understand this is a tough choice, respect colleagues and the executive branch for why you put that forward. We can reflect it at 2-1, but I did just want to note, moving forward, if we are going to clean up the HIF, which I am dead set on making sure happens, we are going to have to take a look at things like this, where we just charge things against the HIF because we think of it as a hodgepodge. If we untangle the hodgepodge, then we're going to have to find, you know, cleaner and more direct ways to do this type of thing. But there's no easy answer to this. There's no, you know, right answer. We have to do it. It's not a choice, and so I appreciate that. Okay. Anything else?
A couple of other, real quick. There's an increase. There's a request for $59,000 for operating expenses associated with Bill 2622, the radon testing bill. Council staff does not recommend including that in the budget. Part of the increase, which was identified in the fiscal impact statement for the bill, was to request an additional 0.25 FTEs for investigator support for ULTA to respond to inquiries or questions about Bill 2622. So council staff's reasoning is that if we are adding a position to the ULTA team for investigator 3, they can absorb that work of responding to those inquiries. Having talked to Ms. Catravanos earlier, there was an initial surge of questions about Bill 2622 when it was implemented, but that's to be expected given it's a new program, a new bill, and there's people who have questions. So we expect the increase to kind of come down from that.
I will do
Yes,
just real
please.
quick. Just a note: we did use the annual rent survey. We put an informational question in there to try, because most landlords are supposed to fill out the
And
annual
no
rent
good
survey.
deed goes unpunished, right? And then
Well,
you got
yeah,
a lot of
but-
questions that you had to answer.
Yeah, but we
Which
tried
we appreciate
to,
you did that.
Yeah, so we're trying our best to find new and unique ways to to serve the purpose.
Yeah, this is the challenge. You give information, and then the information begets questions, and then you need somebody to be able to answer the phone to answer those questions. Councilmember Jawanda?
That's called good government service. You create the demand, and then you meet the demand, and you help people in the process. You know, it's called, the whole theory of outreach is you do the outreach, you're going to get questions. If you say nothing and sit in the corner, you won't get any questions. You know, or you'll get them from just the squeaky wheels. So just explain to me. You know, we passed this bill obviously last year. What is this for? What is the cost that you're asking for the $58,000? What would it go to?
So, maybe I go ahead
Whoever
and
has
Nicole
the
can
answer.
provide additional explanation. So this is the required implementation that department need to do, and so that will include in a lot of we have to update our handbook. In terms of the communication with the residents and the community, we also might end up have to have the contractor, even though 0.25 investigator, we cannot recruit 0.25 investigator in our fiscal impact statement, so likely we might end up hiring the contractor to carry out some of the work that need to do, some of the IT system that need to be upgraded. So it's from operating expenses. This is the cost going forward that the department would have to make sure we have the resources there to carry out the required implementation.
Is
That's
that
correct.
okay?
I
so
also
it's-
had a vision. I had a vision. I had this idea whenever a new bill comes out that implicates the responsibilities of landlords or tenants and individual tenants' rights as well. That information is super important. So I had this vision of potentially putting ads on buses, of having events for landlords and tenants to explain to them what this means, how they can get the kits, having something joint with DEP as well, and once something like this changes, it has an impact as far as we have to update our KBAs, we have to update our website, we have to update our trainings, our manuals. So there's an implication of additional work that needs to be done, not just responding to a few more complaints that comes to the office.
And
I was trying to put a number to that.
What are KBAs?
Knowledge-based, excuse me? Answers.
Oh,
So
okay.
For 311.
311.
So
Got it.
311
Okay.
filters
Got it.
all the calls, and we have to update them, and we've already had meetings with DEP to update the
Okay.
different types of responses and how they can filter inquiries either to our office or to DEP.
Well, I appreciate that. I get it. You don't want an unfunded mandate, but you do what you can, and then we'll talk during
Sure.
the year. I think we don't include this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think we're getting nods up here. I think I'm inclined to agree as well. If you have a plan, you go through 6 months of this, 6 more months of this, and you realize that there really is a significant need or this grand vision that you have, come up with what that would look like and let us know. I will say the only reason why I know what a KBA is that I serve on the Government Operations Committee and we talk about 311. My answers are seldom knowledge-based, unfortunately, but I try my best. I also think we need to have a broader conversation that I started to raise in the GO committee. I just think we should raise with you specifically about this, of the distinction between the centralized PIO office and the outreach and public information efforts that are happening within individual departments. We kind of have a decentralized, centralized system where it's like a little bit of both, which doesn't serve, I think, the residents as well as it could. It's not the clearest, in terms of who's responsible. And so this would be a good example of this question of, is that a PIO effort where you're giving input, but we have people in a centralized office that actually carry out the ads and the ad buy and such, or do we not have a big centralized office, and is this embedded in each department? It's something that we need to work through. But I think Councilmember Duano is right. Think about what you need, come back to us, we could take a look at it next year, but I don't think it's something that we need to fund this year.
I'm just glad I wasn't the one saying no first. I would say, talking about campaigns and educating people and informing folks about changes that we constantly do in Montgomery County and also from the state government, passing laws. And it sounds like you will be supportive of this. I wrote a letter with Council Member Gabe Albornoz to the GO committee that is coming to you. Maybe you actually already have it. Yes, more money. So it sounds like you're going to be supportive of this request, making sure that there is more money to ensure that we're targeting especially ethnic communities, people of color, black and brown communities. We are the majority. That's why I don't use minority anymore. We need to raise that from our vocabulary, making sure that we're doing outreach to educate people about the resources that we have. And this is a great example. Montgomery County has done such a terrible job of not using paid advertisement in certain publications that people actually read. Regular folks do not read the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and the, all these top-tier media outlets. They listen to El Sol, they watch Univision, they hear 97.1. It's a different way of communicating, doing outreach, and this campaign will fall into that. So I am really focused on ensuring that we're working together to educate people, and so looking forward to your support on that. So.
Well, appreciate you raising that. I like to think of the county not doing things terribly, but less than well. Less than well, but yeah, we've got council member keeping it real here, from what I'm told. Okay, so I think we're 3-0 agreement with council staff recommendation on that, but we'll continue to have the conversation and look forward to hearing from you if there are needs moving forward for next year's budget. We have the realignment of the senior planning specialist position.
Yes, next item is purely technical, it's cost neutral. It's simply moving a senior planning specialist from the multifamily affordable housing program to the multifamily program.
Yeah, moving in one and to the other, zero impact, without objection. Okay, technical adjustment.
Okay, next was also technical adjustment. In this case, DHC identified reductions in operating expenses to cover the increase in personnel cost. The total increase is $115,155. The reductions were $52,441. The net increase is $62,714. Recommending this go on the rec list as priority.
Okay, we'll go on the rec list as a priority. No objections. We'll accept that.
Just to be clear, approve the reductions and do the $62,000
Yeah,
as
so
priority.
the approved reduction of $52,441 and add the increase of $115,155 as a priority, and
Correct.
we're taking that without objection.
And the last cost increase for general fund is a 3% inflationary adjustment for nonprofit contracts. It's a $16,981 increase. I'm recommending it include in the rec list as priority. However, central staff will monitor what the increase for other nonprofits and other departments are, and we recommend doing it all the same increase for all departments. So,
Yeah, I mean, I personally think this is a high priority, but I think we should be consistent for all of our nonprofit partners, and so I think as a council, we're going to have to decide that and be, consistent across different departments. I don't want to make one decision here and have Health and Human Services and their contracts have a different decision, but I'll just say I personally think high priority, but I think we'll take that up at full council. That's my sense.
okay.
Okay.
Next items we'll go real quick, is the grant fund. You'll see on the table F1 on page 12. Overall, the grant fund is decreasing by $1 million. Unlike the general fund, portion of DHCA grant fund is fully balanced between revenues and expenditures. It's non-tax supported. These are all external federal state grants. CDBG is decreasing by $732,000. Home grant is decreasing by $282,000. As Ms. Salem alluded to earlier, these are formula driven, so changes in population income levels is what's driving this decrease. So staff recommendation is to recognize this decrease.
Without objection, okay, take that.
There is, every year there are new awards to nonprofits using the CDBG grant. This year $630,000 spread out across 18 nonprofits. Staff is recommending approval of these as well. These are again restricted funds, so every year they go to the same nonprofits.
Without objection, we'll take that.
Okay. Similarly, there's an increase in the ESG grant and the Tacoma Park grant. Very minor increases. Again, these are all pass-through grants. We approve them every year.
Without objection, we'll take that.
Okay. And the last we discussed already, this is recognizing the shift of the FTs from the grant fund to the general and HIF. I believe the recommendation was 2-1 for that one. So,
Thank you.
okay, and that is it.
Okay, thank you to Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Robust discussion, and we will continue it as we talk about the HIF and the nonprofit fund and some of our other actual housing funds, but we'll be doing that at a later date. So thank you very much for being here. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Appreciate
Hopefully
your
help
time.
is on the way. Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. The Housing Opportunities Commission will welcome up our colleagues, Miss Andrews, Miss Brown, Mr. Silverman, Mr. Getzinger, if you're here. I think we have Terry Fowler might not have Terry, and then I think we have Anita from OMB. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Welcome, Ms. Jung. Do you want to lead us off on this item, and we can work through the packet?
Yeah, thank you, Committee Chair. So just to start off, FY24 recommended appropriation for the HOC non-departmental account is $7,972,501. And this is a 4.44 increase from their FY23 approved budget. There are no associated FTEs with this recommended budget addition. Because HOC is an external organization, the county's contribution to its NDA account goes into HOC's public fund and represents obviously a relatively small part of its total revenue. The NDA recommendation is only about $8 million out of HOC's full FY24 recommended budget of $331.8 million. HOC's revenue comes from grants including those from the county, other funding sources, cash flow from HOC properties, and other sources of non-operational income. Today's discussion is going to focus specifically on the line items that are being funded through the county's NDA, but the full HOC FY24 recommended budget is attached in the packet for council members' reference. So in this NDA, there are two line items for FY24. First is the incremental FY24 compensation increase in the amount of $282,566. Obviously, since HOC is an outside organization, the compensation decisions are made separately from county government comp agreements. Council staff did recommend this item as a priority on the reconciliation list, but if council ultimately does not fund this item, then HOC could choose to fund that increase separately using their other revenue sources or funding pools, which I briefly mentioned earlier.
Before we move on, why don't we talk about that item, and then we can move on to the next items? Is that okay?
Yeah.
We're working through how we're handling this budget. It is a little bit of an interesting dynamic of what goes onto the reconciliation lists and what doesn't, and how we're treating outside agencies. It does appear that this is the way in which we are going to be treating outside agencies. I will just say I feel very strongly that we need to provide funding for compensation increases for HOC that are in line with what we're doing with county employees. I think that is only fair and reasonable, and so I think this should be a high priority at the very least. I think that we need to fund it, but I respect the process that has been set up, that the council president has set forth. Understand that county government compensation is being treated differently from outside agencies, even though this is a compensation item, and even though these are public employees that are doing public service work, similarly to some other outside agencies as well. And so I just wanted to note that. I feel very strongly about that we should be funding this, and certainly think that it should be a high priority, as opposed to a priority. Colleagues?
I agree with you completely. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Hello. I think I just want to, I agree generally with the premise, just want to understand. I think council staff's recommendation was to put it as a priority. You're just saying do it as a high priority.
High priority, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's related to compensation. I really do think that it should be a high priority as we,
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Sure.
Okay, so we'll do a 3-0 on it being listed as a high priority. Appreciate the council staff recommendation, the rationale. This is the process that we set up, and we should be consistent. So appreciate our colleagues at HOC, and want you to know how much we support you and your team and your work, and we will move forward with that.
Great, thank you so much. The second recommendation for the increased cost of FY24 rental license fee increase, $5 per unit, plus additional 112 units at Battery Lane. We recommend this as a required change. The fee increase was automatically determined because DHC increased their rental license fees by 10%, which you just unanimously approved, and HOC in turn needs to pay these fees for all their properties. The current MOU with county and HOC states that the county reimburses HOC for these fees. So
this is effectively a contractual obligation.
Exactly.
We have an agreement. We cover this. We just decided that we were going to increase this, and so now we have to fulfill our contractual obligation. So without objection, we'll take that.
Great, and we obviously don't have any recommended budget reductions for HOC, and those two were the only items for this NDA.
Okay. Ms. Andrews, would you like to share anything briefly, or take yes for an answer?
I will take yes for an answer, and thank you so very much for your continued support. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, and really appreciate all of your work, and we'll have you back as we take up the other elements of our housing funds as we continue through this budget. So thank you for that, and thank you, Anita, as well for your work. Okay, now we're going to call up our colleagues in the Office of Agriculture. As we like to say here, the small but mighty Office of Agriculture. We have Ms. Dunn from council staff. We have Jeremy Chris, Mike Scheffel here, and the whole team. I love it. Great. Well, first of all, let me just say this is going to be the last budget, unless we can convince you otherwise, for Director Chris, and it has just been an absolute pleasure to be able to work so closely with you over the last several years. Our fifth budget together, you've been invaluable to the agricultural community. It's going to be a huge loss. I know we just got some guidance on the virtually impossible task of replacing you and the process of setting forth, and I do hope that we have a similar process to the very important and impressive process that the county undertook to select you. But just, we'll have more time to offer our thanks and our gratitude for the partnership, but I would be remiss if I didn't recognize this final budget process unless we do a good job offline and somehow convince you to stay.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman Friedson, for those comments. And we had a very productive meeting with the county executive today, and he's in total support of creating a position just like mine for my replacement. So I'm real encouraged to hear that. He also was very interested in having the agricultural community participate in the review and selection process, which was something that we really wanted to make sure that he felt comfortable with. So that was a real good meeting we had today. We're hoping that we have a real good discussion here today on the budget, and as you said, the last one. But it's been my privilege to work here in the county and help the farm community, and I'll be volunteering in the capacity to do some things to help the team, and I have a list of those things that I plan to continue to just help. But let me just take a moment to introduce my team. Right beside me here is Natalia Salzar. She's our new business development specialist we hired back in January, so she's been really, really helpful. And this was a reflection of last year's budget, how we showed that we've had a huge increase of requests for technical assistance, so that helped us with the justification to reinstate her position. The next down the line here is Lynn Rubin Traversa. She's the new University of Maryland Extension Area Director. And so I wanted her to come here because, as you know, in the Office of Ag, we have 3 different program areas. We have just the core Office of Ag, we have the Soil Conservation District, and then we also have the University of Maryland Extension. So she's one of our really important funding partners. And lastly, my right-hand man, Mike Scheffel. I've had the privilege of working with him for 5 years, and I've dragged him to every meeting, whether he wanted to or not, and taught him everything there is to know about the code. And so Mike has done a great job. So that's my team, and thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate that. Welcome to the team. This previous iteration and continued with this committee have really tried to support you and your office and your efforts, understanding the tremendous amount of work that you have undertaken, and we look forward to continuing that effort and appreciate all the work that you have done. So with that, why don't we turn it over to council staff, and Ms. Dunn, you can take us through the packet.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. It's nice to be here with you. This will be my first time doing this budget, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit and may have to rely on Mr. Chris here to help me out on occasion. But we are here to review their FY24 operating budget. In the executive's recommended budget, there will be an increase of $293,717. And most of this is basically in response to shifting expenditures that are unrelated to agricultural easement purchases from the CIP project where that money had been housed and placing it in the operating budget. The council had reviewed this during their FY23 through 28 CIP process last year, and the then Fed committee supported this recommendation fully, that during the FY24 operating budget, these funds would be placed where it is now.
Yeah, and just to clarify, you're right about this, but the story started earlier. It was the Fed committee's request over multiple years of the county executive to do this because it was the right thing to do to make the changes back to what had been done in order to deal with some budget shortfalls during the depths of the recession, and it just continued. And the committee felt strongly that it shouldn't continue, that this isn't something that we should do as, it was to meet a crisis. We met the crisis, and we shouldn't get too comfortable with this as a funding source. So we appreciate the fact that the county executive did follow through with that, and it looks like it's a big change, but it really was a multi-year effort by the committee and the county executive move forward. That I appreciate Councilmember Jawando and also at that time Chair Reamer, who advocated strongly for that at that time.
Great, thank you for that. So as Mr. Chris mentioned, their budget is really supports 3 different program areas: agricultural services, soil conservation, and the University of Maryland Extension. There's some information in the packet about that. But as we've already just mentioned, the major shift in their budget, the major change from FY23 will be this movement of costs from the CIP to the operating budget, and those really are the base budget for FY24 without objection. And then following the Council President's approach to the budget, where we really look at any other things that we determine whether they really are committed costs that need to be part of that FY24 base budget versus things that are a little more discretionary and get placed then on the reconciliation list. And there's a list of those additional items. They make up $54,423. They're on the second page of the staff report, third page of the staff report. In the staff report, we call out similar, like you heard for your prior budget discussions, the 3% inflationary adjustment for nonprofit provider contracts. That's done as a best practice across the board. The county executive is recommending this increase. The council staff has tried to make a distinction between whether the inflationary increases are obligated as part of the contract itself, the contract requires it, or whether this is just best practice. And so while trying to figure that out, these have been recommended to be placed on the reconciliation list, either under high priority or priority. And so council staff recommends that that element of this list be placed there. Other things on this list, as you can see, are required or committed costs that would go into the base budget for FY24, except for the first line, and I'm sorry I missed this. We've been trying to, again, figure this out upstairs as we all approach the budget the same way. But the first line here is the increase in FY24 compensation adjustments. So that really is the salary and wage increases associated with FY24. As you heard for HOC, we are calling that out and placing it on the reconciliation list now, really to highlight it for the council's awareness, like what are compensation costs in FY24. So I again would recommend it as high priority. We expect we want to pay county workers, but that's before that.
Got it. Okay, so essentially we have the compensation adjustment, which is, separate. We're treating that the same in every department, but
Absolutely.
We're calling it out, and so that is consistent with everything that we've done. Then we have the 54,400.
That's part of the 54,000.
So the 30,000. So
yes.
Okay, so 30,750. So there's a lot of puts and takes in this. I was trying to follow myself. So 30,756 is the compensation piece of the 54,423. Yes. Okay, so what we're really left with is about $24,000, a little less than $24,000 after all the different puts and takes here. Most of these are mandatory, and what you're suggesting, council, as council staff recommendation, is to put the 3,394 on the reconciliation list. The rest are mandatory.
Correct. The 3,394.
Which would be the 3% adjustment to the contract. So
right. And the compensation on the first bullet that we just mentioned, 30.
Okay, so we'll do the compensation. I don't think there's objection there. That's
right.
What we're doing with everything. And then the 3,394. Could you just explain what are we talking about? What's the service that we're talking about for this contract? Maybe we could turn to the department.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Chris. We have the annual Montgomery Weed Control Inc. contract. This is a nonprofit organization that the county has contracted with since 1974. And the county relies on the contractor to meet the noxious weed control requirements of the state of Maryland under the Department of Agriculture. And so the Office of Agriculture, we are the contract administrator, but we also administer the program, helping the board of directors that they have and the two specific staff that we work with separate from the spray crew. I think right now they have a total number of staff of about 9, 7 on the crew. They usually have 2 people, one person driving, the other person operating, and you may see Montgomery weed control on the sides of the road all throughout the county, up county and down county, spraying noxious weeds, Johnson grass, thistle, and Canadian thistle that are noxious weeds defined by the state, and all property owners, whether it's public or private, have to abide by and be in compliance with the law. So that's the one.
Yeah, could you just, so the 3,300, we all agree on the contract, we need this contract, it's an important contract. The question that I have is the additional 3,394 from last year to this year, seems to be the change that's in the county executive's recommended budget. Is that contracted? Is that what like the escalator in the contract?
No, there is no inflation mechanism in the contract. This was an item that we were instructed to do, so we identified the weed control contract that we knew was nonprofit entity, and that's how we came up with that figure.
So my guess is this is similar to the last conversation where possibly the council will as a body decide how to treat inflationary increases across all contracts for nonprofits for all departments. That was your previous discussion to highlight this and understand that there's a chance.
Yeah, I think the difference here is that we're already under contract. Is this a multi-year contract, or we renew the contract?
Yeah, it's a 5-year contract where we can do 4 amendments. The 5th amendment is an annual renewal. So, and again, it's been in place since 1974, before I came here. So,
okay, so what would happen if this 3,394 didn't get funded? Would we not be able to fulfill the contract?
We would just continue to fund it at the current level, which is $32,000 from County DOT and $15,000 from Office of Ag. It's a contract that both County DOT and the Office of Ag contribute together on.
Okay, so whether or not we fund this, does it change the cost of the contract?
I don't believe so. All costs of everything are going up, whether it's fuel or whether it's different herbicides, labor. So again, we would continue to do the contract if this was not approved.
Okay. So I guess we'll add it to the reconciliation list. If you could come back to us and let us know if you think they're going to come back with additional. I'm just a little confused as to what the recommendation is for. Yeah, please.
Is this, because I see this is a 3% inflationary adjustment to nonprofit service providers contracts. This is what it is. Is this 3% required under the contract?
And what Mr. Chris is saying
it
is
is.
that no, it is not required.
But
Is my guess is that all county departments have looked
I
at
see.
their contracts and applied a 3% inflationary increase as good practice,
That's-
but not required
that's
practice.
right.
That is somewhat discretionary and therefore would be something to put on a reconciliation
I
list
see.
because it is not a mandated requirement.
Got it. Okay, why don't we put on the reconciliation list as a priority, but not as a high priority? We'll take it up. There's certainly no guarantees, and it sounds. I was asking the question because if it was contractually obligated, I was going to say it shouldn't even go on the reconciliation list. That was my concern. If we were going to lose a service that is complying with the state and that is a contract that we've had for since before I was born and before actually all of us were born, 3 of us, then it just, but it doesn't seem that that's the case, and I appreciate that. So we'll add it on as a priority on the reconciliation list, and we'll take it up at the full council with no guarantees. Okay?
Okay.
With that,
I think that covers it. They have no vacancy. So
yeah, I just want
good shape.
to know one thing. The office received a score of 3 from the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. There are probably not that many offices of agriculture that would receive a score of 3. I know there have been significant amounts of effort and work to work with smaller farmers, leased farms, other areas of outreach, working in partnership with different organizations. I just want to acknowledge that. And Mr. Chris, if before you end here, if you wanted to make any comments on that.
Sure. The Office of Ag partnered with Montgomery Countryside Alliance in developing the BIPOC Farmer Resource Guide. We have a number of small-scale farmers, people of color, black, women and men, and it's really really interesting to see the products that they grow for their communities. The culturally appropriate foods is the term that we use, and so there's been a lot of camaraderie within the small farm community. You've heard about the Farm to Food Bank program that we're in our 4th year. We have about 35 farmers now that are in that. I want to thank the council for the supplemental appropriation to recognize that as we have more farmers in the program, we have more offers for direct purchases of food that goes to the Manna Food Center for people in need. And then we were able to administer the capacity building grant. And I should say that this is not an Office of Agriculture program. We partner with the Manna Food Center, and we partner with the Montgomery County Food Council, and we work together as a team to address all of the needs for the Farm to Food Bank program. And it's something that we started right at the pandemic, and it's continuing and it's working well. The farmers have an additional way to market their products above maybe participating in a farmer's market or having a CSA, community supported agriculture, or even some of them have on-site farm markets like Butler's and Lewis's and Rock Hill. So it's been a really exciting time. So thank you for that. I
appreciate that. I just wanted to lift that up. And Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
I just want to mention that I had a meeting a couple of days ago with a Countryside Alliance, and they brought in all their Black farmers in, all women by the way, and immigrant women, would make me even more excited. Doing amazing work, and I'm actually connecting one of them because she's very interested on doing urban farming, which I'm really into it. So we're going to look at a site in Aspen Hill this Monday. So great work organizing and working with the Countryside Alliance on this. And I look forward to whoever takes your place has that vision and continues to really involve more people who reflect this county. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that. I'll just note I serve as the council's COG representative on the Farm Committee. Selene Menny Singleton in our council office, our racial equity manager. She has been working on Black Farmer Initiative with COG, something that I have been taking up recently as well when I assumed this role. And so it's definitely an area where I think Montgomery County is leading on. We were privileged to have one of these incredible farmers as our keynote speaker on Ag Day, and I think everybody was blown away. And I will just also recognize as a county that has 1/3 of our residents who are foreign born, most people who move here lived in places that were rural because most places in the world are rural, and having agriculture that is accessible is really important as a welcoming and inclusive community, particularly one that has as many foreign-born residents as we have, and so this program has really built on that. And I have the Region Forward chair here as well, who will want to say a few things.
Yeah, just wanted to thank you for your work and welcome. Good to see you and meet you, and I don't think I've met you before either, so welcome to the team, and good to see you as always, Mike. And Director Chris, I'm sure there will be some appropriate time with a lot of farm fresh fruits and vegetables and other things to wish you well, but thank you for your commitment and your expertise on soil when we were going through that process, the solar stuff last year.
Yes, sir.
And you took, I just appreciate your approach, and you're always very prepared, and you care about the work a lot, and that has been very evident in the time I've worked with you. So thank you, and glad we're able to move this forward. So thank you.
I always think of agriculture. I think some of us have to do our reading. For you, it's just the recall. You just have to go to the recesses of your mind and recall the statute or the history, and it's just been an invaluable resource to all of us. I think particularly to Councilmember Joando and I as new council members joining this committee, to have you there to help us understand the needs of the community has just been terrific. So thank you. With that, I think we have a committee recommendation, and with our appreciation, we will move forward to our next item. Thank you. Okay. We have our Parks Department has joined us. We have Director Riley, who is joining us at the table, Deputy Director Figueredo. And, okay, we are taking up amendments to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning fiscal year 23 to 28 capital improvements program. Essentially, we have a couple things to do here. One is to do the fun part, which is to appropriate state aid. Thank you to our state partners. We have been working hard with them, and they have really helped, as they have in recent years, in significant ways to bring back significant resources to strengthen our Parks Department, and we're very grateful for that. And this is the fun part. We get to spend other people's money for the state money as opposed to county dollars. We love state money. We love federal money. We love grant money. And to make sure that it's being invested in strengthening our Parks Department. And then we do have to take up additional recommendations from the county executive, which came after the committee originally took up the initial reduction that the county executive was supporting. So with that, do we want to do the not fun part first and the more fun part second, so we can end on a positive note?
That's how the staff report is
Why don't we
written,
do that
so
as the staff report
suggest-
frames it? So Ms. Dunn, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, as the staff report notes and as the committee's aware, in March 15th came a second amendment to the MNCPPC CIP for FY23 through 28. And that second amendment came through as a second reconciliation PDF, an amendment to the reconciliation PDF. The first one had requested a $1.5 million decrease that the Parks Department identified a non-recommended place for that reduction, which was legacy open space, and that came before the committee, and the committee did not agree with that reduction, basically saying they preferred to keep the CIP where it was in whole. That happened in January. Then the second one came out in March 15th, and it was basically the same. It was another $1.5 million reduction, so now a total of 3 in that affordability reconciliation PDF. Again, Parks Department reviewed this with the Planning Board, and included in the packet is their non-recommended reduction to legacy open space. It would take the whole $3 million reduction across the FY24 through 28 period of the CIP. So before the committee is whether you want to consider half of that cut, all of it, just the new amendment, the 1.5, all of it, although the council has actually heard that and the council agreed with the committee and didn't take the first $1.5 million cut, or to again reject the reduction to the CIP as suggested by the affordability reconciliation PDF.
Well, I appreciate it. Just to reflect that the committee before rejected the prior cut. Obviously, we're going to have to take all of these things up at reconciliation, unlike the reconciliation list on the operating side where we have to put things on as line items and they're kind of take or leave. The capital budget, just to acknowledge to everyone, the millions watching at home, as Councilmember Geronimo would say, regardless, at the end of the day, we're going to have to do all the puts and takes and figure this out. There are different years, things move in and out, and we have to come up with that. I know that Councilmember Geronimo, as chair of the Education and Culture Committee, is keeping a very close and concerned eye, as he should be, on our ability to fund school priorities, and that has been a major focus of the capital budget discussion, as it appropriately should be. But I do think this council has stepped up and has resisted repeated efforts to make significant cuts to the parks budget. We have prioritized parks on the capital and the operating side historically. This operating budget is unkind to the Parks Department proportionally. If you look at it in comparison to other agencies and departments, I don't think we can promise anything, once we get to reconciliation, because there are a lot of priorities that we have to, weigh through. But I, personally think we should, reject the reduction, and we should see what we can figure out in reconciliation and try to support parks as much as we possibly can, which has been the consistent effort that this committee and that the council has done up to this point. And I just note, and we can turn to staff and to the department, but the note was, if there was a reduction, legacy open space would be the recommendation for where it would come out of. I just think we should acknowledge that. And with that, I'll turn it to Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was just looking up the language I used in the context on Tuesday when we were talking about other major projects, Damascus High School, Magruder, which we in the NC committee did not accept, but we acknowledged that they are going to be something that may have to be considered. We acknowledge the receipt, and I think that's kind of where I think I am on this, in that we don't wish these cuts to happen, but as we figure out the puts and takes of the CIP, there are things that are going to be on the table, and we need to know if we do have to make cuts. That's the whole point of the non-recommended cuts exercise, that should any of these have to happen, what you would prefer, because if you had to make a cut. So we appreciate that, and you responding to the exercise, and so I just want to be clear that we have rejected this. We support the parks. This Legacy Open Space is an important program, but we're going to have things at our disposal should we need to make these tough decisions. I will say there is a recordation tax proposal which could change things. We'll be taking that up. At least one person's in committee here, and so hopefully that'll give us some additional flexibility, but in the CIP writ large. But appreciate this, and happy to not accept it, but realize that it's there.
Former Commissioner, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
I look forward to your presentation, and I will fight for that money, even in full council. There's no way that we're gonna cut the Parks Department budget when I know compared to other departments it's not huge. And if we're continue to say that Montgomery County has this huge quality of life, where parks is a central part of that, and cutting a single thing, even legacy space, is wrong. So and I know we're going to talk about the state money coming in, but I love Delegate Chair Salomon. I had to say that now before we get into it. I really do. He's my go-to person when it comes to bond money for different things, especially playgrounds in Wheaton. And I was very happy to see the report and highlighting that part that we talked about the other day. So that's it.
Appreciate that. I agree with both colleagues. I think I absolutely agree about the importance of parks and the need to fight for this funding. I have done that consistently and will continue to do that, I think, as most know. But Councilmember Jawanda is right that we have some real challenges, and we're going to have to work through this. And so it sounds like we're going to reject 3-0 the recommended cuts, but it's a sober acknowledgement that there are going to be tough choices ahead. Without doing that. So why don't we take that? That's the less fun part. Let's get to the fun part. And I acknowledge Delegate Solomon. I think also Chair Craig Zucker, who now chairs the capital budget, who has been instrumental in securing the record investments that we have gotten from the state, has been a huge help to us as well. Delegate Corman, historically and this year as well, has been a great champion of directing funding to the parks as well. I could go on and on, talk about the chair, the current chair of the delegation. Delegate Corman is the former chair of the delegation, but we have a delegation that has really stepped up here, and we're very thankful to them, and we look forward to appropriating this money. So with that, why don't we go through it?
Thank you. Yeah, the fun part of the packet. And I'm not going to take all the time because I'm sure that the Parks Department would love to talk to the committee about some of these additions, and it's exciting for them, and so more important that they speak to it than me. And with that, I'll turn it to them, and we can cover the first round of them, which are basically the grant bond bill funded projects.
Good afternoon, Mike Riley, Parks Director. It is a good news, bad news day, but I really thank you for your positive comments about your past support of the parks. That is totally true, that you have stood up for us during the budget process, so thank you. The thank yous are the big deal. You mentioned some names. It's always dangerous when you start mentioning some names but not others, but you mentioned the two I wanted to really give a huge shout out to, which was Senator Craig Zucker and Delegate Mark Corman, and of course Delegate Jared Solomon as well, and all of them. I just wanted to say that this great news, the big thank you obviously goes to our delegation for bringing the money to us, but there's a lot of proactivity on behalf of the park staff to identify great projects, reach out to our elected officials and promote and sell them, and the reception we've gotten has grown every single year. And we are just going to continue down this road of trying to maximize the amount of state and federal money we can bring into the parks, knowing the fierce competition you all have to deal with on the county's general obligation bonds. So thank you. I mean, there's a lot of great projects here. It was 13 capital grants, or what are typically called legislative bond initiatives or bond bills. We got the $7 million in POS that we allocated to some very key projects you're very familiar with. The Wheaton Regional Park, implementation of the Wheaton Regional Park Master Plan, Ovid Hayes and Wells, which is a project your former colleague Craig Rice had to fight for year after year after year, and we are going to move the carousel from Wheaton to Ovid Hayes and Wells, and then we're going to buy Wheaton a beautiful brand new carousel is what we're going to do. So I won't go on it. The project Councilmember Fani Gonzalez raised is a great partnership that she and Delegate Solomon pointed out, this playground that's on county-owned property in Dalewood, a community that is at the eastern quadrant of Connecticut and Randolph Road, that really it's an old playground, but it should be a park. It really needs to be a park, and that's what that project's about, is making it a park, and we're very excited to enter into an agreement with the county to do that. I do need to say, though, we only got part of the money, so we'll have to work with you and the delegation next year as well, but we can get going on that project. But that's all I'll say on that, and I can't certainly leave out Congressman Trone and Raskin for getting us the blocks of federal money too. They're all good projects, and we will make sure we move forward and implement them.
Yeah, I appreciate everything. They're all great projects. I just did want to lift up one, the Cabin John Regional Park, the home of the Bethesda Big Train. That is an incredible facility that has had a field that I don't think matched the quality of the facility because of the irrigation challenges. It couldn't be funded originally, and then to retrofit it became cost prohibitive. This is the standard that we put in all of our highest quality new fields around the county, and here we had this crown jewel where we have future professional baseball players, college ball players from all around the country coming to Montgomery County, and a field that was not even as good as some of our new fields that our high school players play on, and I just wanted to note that. I don't know if you wanted to make any comments about that.
Oh, it's a big deal. As you said, the Povich Field, the Big Train games are tremendous. We're going to have the Pint Israel Juneteenth Classic again, celebrate Juneteenth out there. And of course, the kids, the leagues get to play on that field as well. BCC baseball and kids get to play. And what a experience for a kid who gets, a typical playing on local park fields, to get to play on this field. But this will be a state-of-the-art irrigation system that's totally operated through sensors. I mean, it will apply only the amount of water that's needed. It will never overwater. It will never underwater. And it's a rather expensive project because we had to bring in larger water mains to the area, so it's not just the irrigation system. But yes, we're really excited about that one, and a big thanks to Delegate Corman.
Yeah, thanks to Delegate Corman. And in this building, I would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge Bruce Adams, who is the one who brought that to Delegate Corman, and his lifted up Calvin John Regional Park and Shirley Povich Field, and has been a great champion for it, and just want to acknowledge his efforts there. And I know this is one of the really great opportunities, not just to play on this field for our high school players and our young people, but one of the most accessible, family-friendly ways to see really highly competitive sports. As an entertainment, it's a very accessible way to do it. I know Councilmember Jawando has frequently brought his family now, and Councilmember Rafani Gonzalez, and I brought my nieces and nephews there. I've eaten a cicada at that site in order to get a T-shirt, but it really is a crown jewel in many ways of our athletic facilities, and now the field will meet the rest of the facility as well. So really appreciate that. So Councilmember Jawando.
Just agree, and just want to thank you guys for your work. A lot of great things on this state. Want to thank our state delegation, folks that have been mentioned, Jared Solomon, Mark Corman, and Senator Zucker, and the whole team. Refreshers like the Long Branch Park and Fairland and Wheaton Fort. This is things that are like core in communities that need it, so kids can show up there and families can feel welcome and safe. So it's just really great that we get to do this, and it's state money, not our money. So it's great. It's great. It is our money because we pay taxes.
That's right. That's right.
But it's nice to not double dip. So thank you very much and appreciate the work.
Here to that. There's also $1 million federally, as noted, from our federal partners from Department of Housing and Urban Development, and so the full amount is $7.053 million in program open space funding, and so we will adjust those CIP projects accordingly, and without objection, we will enthusiastically to that end our day, I believe, on that note, with that recommendation. Great. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.